everybody. Welcome. Welcome to our friends on Zoom who are not with us in the room. My name is Justin Mutter. I'm from the Center for Health Humanities and Ethics here at UVA, and we have the privilege of co-sponsoring this great event, the Bice Lecture with the School of Nursing. So delighted to have Dr. White with us today. Just a couple of quick words, and then we'll get to the main event. Mainly about claiming your continuing education credit. So there's, some of you may know there's a new system now. So I'm just going to blitz through this really quickly. For those of you who are on Zoom, this will appear, it appeared already at the beginning, and it will appear as well at the end of the session so that you can claim your continuing education credit. For those of you who are here with us, the handout has this information. So very quickly, I'm going to go through this very quickly, but there are a couple ways to claim your credit. You can actually text to this system and claim your credit that way. Again, this is on your handout, and again, will be posted after the session for those on Zoom. The important thing is also that this is your code, so 24640. That's what you can text, or you can, if you don't have an account, you can sign up on this website, uva.cloud-cme.com, and once you have an account, you can claim your credit for that. It is also on an app now. We are very much in the 21st century, so you can download the app if you prefer. We get out of that. So really excited that we could be a part of this today, and I will turn things over to Dean Beardholt. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Marianne Bernholt. I'm the Dean of the School of Nursing, and I hold the Pew Charitable Trust Dean Chair that we recently were lucky to receive at the School of Nursing. The School of Nursing has two endowed lectures each year, which feature eminent nurse leaders as speakers. The Bice Lecture, which we have here today, takes place each fall. It's named for alumni and former dean of the School of Nursing, Zula Baber Bice, who led the school from 1961 to 1962, and again from 1964 to 1966. If you want to see what she looks like, visit us in the Dean Suite, because we have all the pictures of people that have led the school since its beginning almost 125 years ago. The School of Nursing Alumni Association endowed a lecture in her name in 1975, making it one of our oldest and most important gatherings. Each year, the Bice Lecture offers a platform for thought leaders to speak on issues that matters in nursing, medicine, healthcare, caregiving, and beyond. We are lucky today to have with us this year's Bice Lecture, Dr. Ken White, which is immediate past president of the American Academy of Nursing, a UVA alumni and UVA School of Nursing Professor Emeritus, UVA Medical Center Professor Emeritus, and VCU School of Nursing's Cardwell Professor of Health Administration and the Centera Healthcare Professor. He is a founding chair of the LGBTQ Forum of the American College of Healthcare Executives, and earned that organization's Gold Medal Award in 2019. He was first elected to the American Academy of Nursing, their board, in 2017, and was elected president of the Academy in 2019, a role he assumed between 2021 to 2023. In 2024, he earned both the Daisy Lifetime Achievement Award and was named a Luminary Fellow by the National Black Nurses Association for his more than 30 years commitment to equity, diversity, and inclusion. For the last 3 years, Ken served as Dean of Mass General Hospital's Institute of Health Professions School of Nursing, a role he retired from this past summer. He is the author of several books, including The Well-Managed Healthcare Organization and 2 editions of Take Charge of Your Healthcare Management Career. But many of us know Ken in a different capacity. He's a familiar face, and he's been here and know many of you in the room, and I could not be more pleased to call to the podium Dr. Kenneth R. White, Dean and Professor Emeriti, who will present, following what matters, a look at his personal and professional trajectory, our collective interconnectedness, and why feeding ourselves and one another really, truly matters. Please join me in welcoming my friend and colleague, Ken, to the podium.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? I want you to hear me really well, although I may not hear you really well because since I was here last, I got hearing aids, but I forgot to put them in today. So at the end, Dr. Mutter's going to help me with questions. And I also want to say that I gave a talk during Nurses Week last May at the Dana-Farber Cancer Institute in Boston, where I was Dean of the MGH School of Nursing. And I'd only had the hearing aids for 3 days, and I didn't realize it, but I got a call in my ear while I'm giving my lecture that my car was ready. And I'd never had that sensation before, and I kept right on talking. So that's just not going to happen today because I left them at home. It's like Old Home Week. It's like, you know, my past wonderful friends and colleagues appearing in front of me, and it brings back so much joy and happiness that I experienced while I was here at UVA with the School of Nursing and as a student, and so many esteemed colleagues in the room. I like to start with something funny, and this really cracked me up. As I was leaving the Dean's suite, John Teahan left his office, and he said, "Who's this person doing this Bice lecture? Should I go or what?" And he was just like giving me a hard time. I said, "John, you need to come because one of the things he's passionate about, he's a playwright." I said, "Maybe you can write a play." And he also knows I like musical theater. So he said, "Ken, we need a few songs." So, John, it's a deal. Today's a special day for several reasons. First of all, I never thought growing up in northeastern Oklahoma in the country that I would end up in Charlottesville, Virginia, or Boston, Massachusetts, or anywhere else I've ended up. So I am thrilled every time I get the opportunity to talk and tell my story. And I want it to be authentic, and I want it to be real, and I want it to be, I don't like to say inspiring, but I want it to be relatable. I hope that you will walk away with something that you can take away of interest. The second thing is, I was the moderator for the Bice lecture in 2019 or 18 with Dr. Lucy Kalanathy when Breath Becomes Air. And I thought, oh, wow, that was an honor itself. I never in a million years thought that I would be the actual Bice lecturer. So what an honor. The other thing is I want to say is today is Rosh Hashanah, a holy day in the Jewish faith. And I say, Shana Tova, which means wishing you a sweet and good year. The next thing I want to say is I may need to explain what is the MGH Institute of Health Professions, because I'd never heard of it until I was approached by someone that I knew who was the president and asked if I'd be interested in being a dean there. So the Mass General Hospital School of Nursing was one of the first 3 original schools of nursing based on the Florence Nightingale model in 1873. It closed in 1983, and in 1979, in its place, Mass General Hospital developed a college for health professions. It's mostly the rehab professions, nursing, and leadership, audiology, et cetera. And the school has been around one of the oldest in the country. So it's a nursing school that's not owned by a university. It's owned by a health system, the Mass General Brigham Health System. I wanted to explain that because I want to make sure people now know what the MGH IHP is. It's great to be back and see so many people that I've worked with in so many different ways. So I see former doctoral students in the room. I see former students in the room. I see former colleagues in the room, co-authors in the room, palliative care team members in the room, and my wonderful teammates that I worked with when I was here on various projects. A special welcome to all students and alumni, both here and on Zoom. And also thanks to you, Dean Barinholtz, and those who selected me for this esteemed lecture and all who worked together to make it happen. Diane, thank you. Dr. Mutter, thank you. Charlene Kaufman, Christine Cuter, thank you for all you've done behind the scenes to incorporate the Bice lecture into Medical Center Hour. I still remember the first day that I sat in advanced pharmacology in 2010. I was 56 years old, going back to school to be a nurse practitioner. And I hadn't really touched a patient for quite some time. I was a faculty member in health administration at VCU in Richmond. I worked in a homeless clinic, but not the same thing as really learning how to read ventilator settings, which really scared me a lot about coming back to school. And I thought almost every week when I came here that I was going to quit. It was too hard. I'd forgotten too many things. And I just want to say thank you, Beth Epstein, because she was always there to reassure, reaffirm, and encourage me. Little did I know that Dean Dory Fontaine, and Dory Fontaine is on Zoom, thank you, Dory, would offer me a job 2 years later, and that I would have the opportunity to work with an esteemed faculty and administrative colleagues who are friends to this day. One of the best professional decisions of my career. It opened many doors. Thank you, Dory and Barry, for hosting many dinners and events at Pavilion 9 that supported a culture of mattering. I also recognize and am indebted to Drs. Leslie Blackhall, Dr. Josh Barkley, Tim Short, David Ling, Meg Barkley, Jonathan Bartels, and Lee Klimpner, who recently graduated as an acute care nurse practitioner. Congratulations, Lee. They taught me what it means to deliver exceptional palliative and end-of-life care. I had a practice every Tuesday. They jokingly called it Tuesdays with Ken. A special shout out I give today to Dolores Fields. Dolores, I know you're on Zoom. Thank you so much. She worked alongside me every day, juggled the many hats I wore. Dolores, thank you for your smile, your uplifting and encouraging spirit, your wisdom, and your friendship. I would also like to recognize the CPD team of Linda Hansen, Catherine Reed, and Jan Balmer, and Christine Cuter, who knows my voice better than I know my voice. I could not have done many of the things with the confidence without her being able to listen so carefully and intently and making things so beautiful that I could actually read and say. I wore different hats also on the administrative team that runs the school. Thank you, John Tian, Christine, Becky Bauer, Sue Loving, Hannah Crosby, and all who work behind the scenes to make the school a great place it is. It's very important to me that I begin every meeting with gratitude, and that's why that's so important to me. Next slide. If I can make it work. Maybe I'm in the wrong file. Oh, here we go. Okay, Zula May Baber Bice, what a mouthful. Zula May Baber was the School of Nursing acting dean twice, as Dean Barinholtz said, during a difficult time. They were merging 3 nursing programs into 1 degree program. There was a nursing education program in the education school, there was a diploma school, and then there was a degree school here at UVA. She had the respect of doctors, nurses, and administrators. She followed what mattered. And I tell that story because they had a difficult time finding a real dean because nobody wanted to take the deanship with the 3 schools. They knew that they would be the bad person if they had to close 2 of them. And so it was Zula May Baber who worked with the faculty, the medical staff to make plans to close 2 of those schools and merge them into 1. And so she worked also tirelessly. What mattered to her was bringing the salaries and benefits and prestige of nurses up within the university and the hospital. The closure of the schools was announced during her tenure, so you know it was a hard time. She didn't apply for it, and they received many good candidates of a search chaired by her future husband, Professor Raymond Bice. And then they got married when the new dean was hired. Okay. Dr. Mutter, what am I doing wrong? Okay, got it. All right, so I'm going to talk about following what matters. 35 years ago, I'm going to come back to this at the end. I met someone at VCU where I did my doctorate in nursing degrees, and she told me her favorite quote, and her favorite quote is, "When you follow your bliss, doors will open for you that you didn't know were there, and that wouldn't be there for anyone else." And it really resonated with me. And so many of you have heard that quote from me here in the past, but now I've extended it to following what matters, because you've got to know, you can't know what your bliss is until you know what matters. So I'm very intrigued by this, the study and the evidence of mattering, which is having the opportunity to both add value and feel valued. It's the research focus of Julie Hazlip, who couldn't be here today, and other colleagues here at the University of Virginia. It's defined as one's ability to add value and feel valued. Mattering is acknowledged by forward-thinking organizations, including healthcare organizations, as a key driver of success, especially with brand new nurses, especially with people who are thrown into a situation where they don't feel like they're ready or really prepared for yet. That will be why they leave. That might also be why they leave the profession. Julie and her colleagues have written about mattering specifically within the healthcare space. In her first study, done in collaboration with the Darden School, Julie polled more than 300 nurses and nurse practitioners about job engagement, burnout, and the sense of meaning they got from their work. Here's what they found in their study, which was published in the Journal of Nursing Administration. Nurses who felt they mattered perceived they added value and felt appreciated in their roles. They were less likely to report burnout, and they stayed in their jobs longer and were more deeply engaged. Nurses who couldn't recall the last time they felt they mattered experienced more burnout, were more at risk of quitting, and were less engaged. One CNO colleague in Boston, they've always had a tremendous retention rate of their nurses. And in fact, at one time, they had a waiting list of experienced nurses who wanted jobs at this particular hospital, go be unnamed. And COVID changed everything. And this CNO said, if I can keep a new nurse for 2 years, I feel like we've won. If we can keep them past 2 years, That's bonus. So you see, this is a major issue. It makes sense. So key takeaways from Julie's and her colleagues' research: higher levels of mattering equal lower burnout, attrition, and higher engagement. Mattering correlates with perceived social support from one's organization, supervisors, peers, subordinates. Workplaces drive a sense of mattering and are more important than the meaning derived from patient interactions. This is so important that it's not enough to feel like you matter with your patients. You also need to matter with your team. And I would also like to suggest that when I say nurses, I mean everyone. I mean physicians, anyone who's on that care team. So relying on my patients make me feel like I matter is not a long-term solution. We have to do better, and we have to do it with intentionality and on purpose. I'm going to run through some statistics that are pretty sobering. Many of you have probably heard these. You don't need me to tell you that this work comes at an incredibly critical time when more than 1 million American nurses have quit their jobs in the last 4 years. And the fact that nurses and physicians now kill themselves at twice the rate of the general population is astonishing and very, very sad. Substance use disorders among clinicians are an all-time high. Even with a pandemic behind us, we continue to stand at a precipice. Hayslip and her colleagues polled nursing and medical students also about their work, funded through 2 Kern Foundation grants. And based on what the students said, painstakingly identified clinicians and faculty and staff who were called out as an integral part of the students' sense of mattering to see what these individuals did. Maybe it was a hug in the hallway, a text of affirmation, or an in-person check-in. It might have been attendance at a well-being event with food, always food, right, in the nursing school, and maybe the therapy dog. A compliment on an exam or skills assessments taken, or an affirmation on a hard day. Faculty and staff who made students feel they mattered also importantly helped ensure that the nursing and medical students didn't get overwhelmed and drop out. I would say to people, if you feel that way, come and see me. My door's open. Here's my phone number if you need it. Here's my email. Reach out. Julie and her colleagues put together a mattering toolkit for people across the board, from the C-suite to the classroom. And I hope you have the option or the opportunity to access that incredible data. I know this all too well, having been a School of Nursing dean, that we struggle to sustain enrollment over the last few years. Enrollments continue to decline. My school is in New England. It's private. It's one of the most expensive private schools in America. And it's now not so much going to a prestigious school as much as it is, I need to pay off my bills. If you already have a degree in something else, which ours was an accelerated program, so they had to have a degree in something else. And so the competition is there, and some of the state school tuitions, it's going down. The numbers of applicants are going down in all programs, except D&P. And in D&P, they're going up. That's really, really interesting to me. So nursing stands at the cusp of a new reality. There's good news and bad news, and I think it's an opportunity, but we need to be concerned about working conditions, safety, the ethical health of our working environments, about staffing and compensation levels, about nursing's close bedfellow, moral distress. Who are we? We are, as nurses, physicians, faculty, and administrative staff colleagues, many, many things. And of course, beyond the scope of our professional lives too, we're even more. But let's talk about the basics of our professional life here at the University of Virginia and remind ourselves of the positions we occupy as educators, scholars, mentors, staffers, clinicians, and colleagues. We are each of us innovators, watching, testing, improving, and never just making do, but doing better and making better. We're also collectors of stories and storytellers, which is critical in this era of dis and mistrust, political upheaval, a changing media landscape, skepticism from members of the public, and a moving target about facts and truths we can rely on. Nurses' voices are critical in the lay press precisely because we remain a trusted source of information. For as long as I can remember, there was only 1 year when nurses were not #1 trusted profession. Does anyone know when that was? Does anyone know? 2001, and it was the firefighters in New York City. But aside from that, it's been nurses all along. Most trusted profession, we belong in the newspaper. We belong on the evening news. I won't go back to work again unless I can be the nurse correspondent on ABC, NBC, or CBS News. It's the nurses we need to hear from, not just always the physicians. We need to be on radio and TV and magazines, blogs, op-ed pages, because we know how to offer facts and truths about critical topics responsibly. It's what we do in our professional lives when we care for patients and families and loved ones. We can also strive to be each other's champions. Mattering must include how we belong within our community. It's not just about us. So I want to share a little bit, and I'm kind of in a place in my life, having just retired after 51 years in healthcare, of doing sort of a look back at when have I felt like I mattered the most? And of course, I start with 1956, which is when I was born, so now you know my age. A colleague once said my title should be Nurturer in Chief. That term resonated with me because nurturing is something I come honestly by, and as I age, something that I really leaned into. I also learned and intentionally practiced it over the course of my 51-year career, following the example of many people who've taught and influenced me. My first and perhaps one of my most important teachers was my grandmother. We all called her Nana, but her name was Pearl, and she really was a pearl. Her job was a domestic servant. She had a 5th grade education. This is in northeastern Oklahoma. She arrived there because when oil was found in the late teens, they all needed workers, and she came on a train from Arkansas. But she was the smartest person I ever knew. She was my first nurturer. I was blessed to have her support through my early years, which I believe has had everything to do with my success as a human being, as a nurse, professor, scholar, and academic, and as a husband. Dr. Carl Uten is my husband on the front row, always my #1 fan. Like many of you, my story has many twists and turns, and like you, much of who I am continues to evolve. I was an orderly. That's me in 1974. That's actually, I was an orderly, but I was also in my first year of nursing school, St. John's Hospital School of Nursing in Tulsa, Oklahoma. The first year was a community college, and I worked at St. Francis Hospital as an orderly. And I learned at the end of that year that school had closed, and I had to transfer to another college. And I didn't have a lot of options. I didn't have a lot of good counseling. And I transferred to a school that didn't have nursing. So I had to pivot in kind of a different direction. And then I pursued a master's degree in hospital administration. So for the next 12 years, that's what I did. I served as a hospital administrator for a Catholic health system. And in 1996, I graduated with my PhD in health services research, my master's degree in nursing, and my baccalaureate, my second baccalaureate degree in nursing from Virginia Commonwealth University. And then decided that after 20 years at VCU, I wanted to end my career the way I started it, at the bedside. I wanted to return to what mattered to me. And at that time, what has always mattered to me was caring for people who are suffering and caring for people who don't have a voice. And so I asked my colleague, Pat Coyne at VCU, what do I do? I want to be like you. He said, well, you need to be a nurse practitioner first. So where should I go? He said, UVA, and you need to get to know Susie Burns. Susie Burns, then, I've had a long history with. She was my sponsor for the academy. Susie Burns taught me a lot, and I came here and learned all that I could, and was introduced to an amazing palliative care team, not only here. I see Dr. Josh Barkley's here on the top row. Sorry. One day, I cared for a student. While I was a student, I cared for a patient. And I thought the patient would be a perfect candidate for palliative care. A student. And so I told the nurse, and she asked for a consult. And she got one. So while I was in with the patient, Dr. Barkley arrived in the room. It was sealed for me then. I want to be like him. I want to do what he does. I want to be a part of this team. And it did come true years later. So I started in a place where there were 100 beds in my hometown hospital. One nurse on the 3 to 11 shift as a supervisor, one nurse in labor and delivery, an LPN for 3 units, and the rest of the care was provided by nursing assistants and orderlies. That's really where I learned the most about giving care. It's really where I learned the most about what my passion was. I'm a palliative care nurse practitioner with a keen interest in making my patients' end-of-life experiences extraordinary. I'm also a husband. I've already introduced Carl, a first-generation college attender, an inveterate gardener, reader, antique and art collector. I love cooking and canning and writing and looking at art and making people happy. Hospitality is a core value. As Henri Nouwen says in Reaching Out, one of my favorite books, the hospitable teacher has to reveal to the students that they have something to offer, to take away the veil covering many students' intellectual life and help them see that their own life experiences, their own insights and convictions, their own intuitions and formulations are worth serious attention. Affirmation, encouragement, and support are often much more important than criticism. And that's what I have hoped that I have been able to do with my students. Being a nurse is full spectrum work. There's so much you can do with it and so much you can become. The higher up I went professionally, though, the more I found myself returning to a core idea. I want to nurse out loud. I want to be a voice for nursing, and I need a position, I need a platform, I need a podium, I need a way to do that. So I plotted that out, and you never can do it exactly because a lot of twists and turns happen. But that's what I proceeded to do in some of these other pictures here. And you'll see in 2021, that was when I assumed the presidency of the American Academy of Nursing as its first man president. And it was so wonderful because Dr. Ernest Grant was president of the American Nurses Association that year, and we both broke glass ceilings for men in nursing and in other ways. So very proud of that. My final 2 jobs as the IHP Dean for the last 3 years and the Academy of Nursing Leader are truly the culmination of my professional career, and I'm grateful to have had the ability to have those opportunities. In these roles, I've truly felt like I mattered, and I have really strived to make those around me, faculty, staff, and students, feel that they matter too. We seldom do anything completely alone. There are people who are the wind beneath our wings, our go-to friends, and those who will tell us what we don't want to hear, but need to hear. We need each other. Mattering is closely related to interdependence. So when have I felt like I mattered the most? And this is what I want to share with you, and I want you to think as I go through this, maybe how it resonates with you or doesn't. I call them the 6 Ps. Most journeys have a roadmap, even if they are clear only in the looking back, the turning points, the reflections. I want to share 6 principal concepts that have guided and shaped my health administration and nursing careers, my teaching, my leadership, and my life. I call them the 6 Ps. Here we go. The first one is purpose. Define your purpose. How do you know what your purpose is? I reflect on Miss Baber and how she decided at an early age to be a nurse and to join the Navy Nurse Corps and serve in World War II. She wanted to do something that made a difference, something that mattered. Here I am at 16, full-time orderly, junior in high school. From the time I was an awkward teenager looking for something beyond my small-town Oklahoma family life, I knew I wanted to find a place in healthcare. And this is also when I knew my purpose. I want to tell a short story. I was caring for a man by the name of, his last name was Fisher, Mr. Fisher, on 2 West in Okmulgee. And I had known him a lot because he came in and out, and I was one of the people he liked to deal with. He was a man of few words, a black gentleman. He lived in subsidized housing. We'd never seen him with any family members. He was, I could usually get him to get up in a chair and go for a walk. This particular night, I went in and asked him to get up in a chair, and he said, "No, I don't want to get up in the chair tonight." And I said, "Oh, the doctor will be so disappointed. We really do need to get you up in the chair." "Nope, I'm not going to do it." So I had to go tell my charge nurse that I couldn't get him up, and she goes, "Oh, come with me. I'll show you how we do this." So we go in, she tries, and he says, "No, I don't want to get up in the chair tonight. You people leave me alone." So what do you think we did? We got him up in the chair, we lifted him. I got up in his arms, she got up under his knees, and we lifted him in the chair, tied him in with the sheet, because that's what we did then. You all will remember that. And to keep him from falling and hurting himself. And we did the reverse to put him back in bed. When I left that night, I stopped by his room and I said, "Mr. Fisher, tomorrow will be a better day. We'll go for a walk out in the hall." And he said, "No, I won't be here." I said, "Oh, tomorrow's going to be a better day." "No, it's not." I came in the next day at 2:30 to get ready for report at 2:45. You know what I mean, 3 to 11 nurses. And his bed was made, empty and made for the next patient. And I thought, well, he wasn't supposed to be discharged today. So in report, I found out that he died in the night. And that's when I knew what my purpose was. I had to be a voice. I had to do something. I had to advocate. Why do we do things to people without their consent? Especially the last night they're alive. If I don't want to get up in the chair, Carl, don't make me. We need to involve our patients and families about what they value, what they care about, and I've devoted my career to that purpose. It was a turning point for sure. So how I've defined my purpose, deciding to focus on your purpose is like a muscle group. It forms a habit. We owe it to one another, our students and our patients, to really listen in whatever environment we enter. From the hospital unit, this is my palliative care consult team at UVA in 2019. Jonathan Bartels, Umbri Mehta, and Dr. Josh Barkley. From the bedside to the classroom, boardroom, and beyond, remaining connected to our purpose is key. Number one, what is your purpose? Don't tell me, but think about it. Think about it, reflect on it. P number two, pinpoint your passion. What are you passionate about? Because it's hard to know. Some people are born knowing what they want to do for the rest of their lives, but most of us don't, because we haven't yet experienced other opportunities that might be out there. I have also found a great sense of mattering when I feel that my work aligns with what brings me joy. When Ms. Baber was the dean during a tumultuous time in nursing education, she chose to work behind the scenes to make friends with alumni and medical staff and develop allies to increase nursing pay and benefits. Well, my passion as a teenager, I was interested in Emily Dickinson poetry. I was interested and fascinated with death. What does it mean? What happens? And I read this little article in my ninth grade weekly high school newspaper. I cut it out, and I still have it to this day. It's been very, very meaningful to me, and I make copies. And when a friend loses a loved one, I often will cut this out and send it with a note, because tears are the price we pay for love sometimes. And I'm drawn to that space of suffering, especially suffering around loss. We didn't talk about death in the 70s, 80s, and we still don't talk about it today. It's better. This whole thing was a mystery to me, what happens. Like so many of the spaces in which I find myself as a nurse, mentor, hospital administrator, caregiver, professor, and nurse practitioner, I'm passionate about occupying the spaces in between and proud to be there. My passion is much bigger than curiosity about death. It's focused on engaging with vulnerable populations and feeling called to the spaces where people are suffering. So next, I'm gonna introduce some of my former students here at UVA School of Nursing. Some of you may know this is Alex Wolf. So not only do we have a responsibility to identify the 6 Ps, I think as educators and professionals, we have a responsibility to help students and others find theirs, find their Ps, their passion, their purpose. So Alex stopped by my office in August 2013. I'd been here 1 week, and he'd been here 1 week. And he said, I would like to make an appointment to meet with you. And I said, come in, have a seat. He said, I've done my homework, I've read about you, and I want to study with you. I want you to be my advisor, I want to be a palliative care nurse practitioner, and I want to get my DNP. And I said, done. But did they already assign you an advisor? He said, yes, and it's not you. And I said, well, let's ask Dorothy Tolman if she will be willing to switch with me. So she did. So I stuck with him. Many of you know his story. He is such an amazing individual. But I talked to him last week, and I talked to all the people that I'm featuring here today recently. And I asked him what mattered to him and how did he know it mattered. And he said that I gave him this advice to allow space for serendipity, the things that come to you that you don't expect or ask for, because you may learn something that will cause you to change your mind, because we cannot map our careers or lives out in a straight line. So after he graduated, he married his wife, who was a medical student. They moved to Cincinnati for her residency in emergency medicine, and he worked as a palliative NP. And then when she finished her residency, they moved to Boston for her to do a fellowship in health equity and social justice at Boston Medical Center, and he needed a job. I hired him as an assistant professor in the School of Nursing at Mass General. And so I've had the opportunity to go full circle with Alex Wolf. And 2 weeks ago, the students, the pre-licensure students, voted him their favorite teacher to be the speaker at their pinning ceremony. Really excited about that. So what is your passion? Where do you find your bliss and your sense of mattering? The third P is play to your strengths. If you want to have power in your life, be good at what you're good at. Comparing yourselves to other people is just a big waste of time. It's a diminishing rate of return. I didn't really know that when I was a child and growing up. Here are my grandparents who really raised me in this like 2.5-room house. And we didn't have much. My family was kind of poor. My grandmother sewed my clothes, but she made me feel like I was important and that I mattered. Not having had everything has become a strength for me across my professional life, and I have her to thank for that. The more willing to share my story, to be my authentic self, hailing from a small rural town, becoming a nurse in a female-dominated profession, claiming my status as an out gay man, living with my life with authenticity and using my story to inspire others, the more I felt I mattered. So next I want to introduce you to Julie Ortega, who's here in our audience. I met Julie Ortega about 6 years ago at the UVA hospital, and it was in my palliative care practice, and I had permission from Julie to tell this short story. I was holding a family meeting with Julie and her parents, and her father is Spanish speaking, her mother is Vietnamese speaking, and she was amazingly compassionate and translating. And I had a conversation with her in the hall, and I said, "Are you a nurse?" Because she asked questions that nurses would ask. And she said, "Oh, no, I'm not. I work in a lab." And I said, "You'd be an amazing nurse." So we stayed in touch. I think I gave you my card, Julie. She sent me an email and she said, "What do I do? Where do I start?" Got some prerequisites to get out of the way and then apply. I think I wrote a letter of recommendation. She got in. She graduated a couple of years ago. And now she is a nurse at Inova. She drove from Inova here to be here today on a cardiac step-down unit, and she precepts students and has recently been assigned a leadership role on that unit. She told me that one of the things that she didn't realize was when I told her that she was so compassionate, she was really thinking like she might want a career in genetics and research. But just because I told you that you were just so good with people, so naturally caring and kind and generous, she reconsidered nursing. And I think it's just tremendous that you pursued it, Julie. Thank you. And thank you for being here today. What are your strengths? The next P is pay attention. We live in an era of inattention, and also that wonderful things happen when we intentionally engage. You have to make room for serendipity. I have several stories about that in my life. I won't go into them because of the time, but I want to say that I met Sabrina Monroe, who's a student right now here in the CNL program. Sabrina is right here, raise your hand. And this was she was a sophomore at the University of Richmond, and this was an intersemester seminar in Maine, and I was there on vacation, and Dr. Rick Mays asked me to come and speak to the students about careers, and especially about palliative care. What's palliative care? And nursing and medicine and other things, and that's when we met. And I said I lived in Afton, and she said, "I'm from Waynesboro." She came up to me, and she said, "Could I contact you? I'd like to meet with you." This is during COVID, almost during COVID. COVID happened after that. So she stayed in touch with me and said for 3 years as an undergraduate. They invited me to be a speaker at a lecture kind of like this, and Julie wrote the introduction. She was going to introduce me to the audience, and COVID happened, so the lecture was canceled. This is an excerpt from her introduction. We first met at Wheezy's. If you haven't had breakfast at Wheezy's in Waynesboro, it's a great experience, but it's probably not so good for your arteries. We met and we've continued to meet, email, go back and forth, talk on the phone. Long story short, she ended up here in our CNL program. And what she told me was that she pursued a possibility. She had courage. She had to have courage to continue to talk to me. Sometimes people won't because they'll say, he's a professor, he's this, he's that, or whatever. But you stayed in touch, and thank you, Sabrina, and thank you for being here today. Where is your attention? How do you pay attention? The next P is position yourself and promote others. So what's your personal brand? How do you add value? You need to know that. When I started as president of the American Academy of Nursing, I consulted my good friend, Dr. Richard Keeling. Some of you may know him. Rich gave me this advice. He said, Ken, know your brand, stick to your brand, otherwise people won't know who you are or what you're about or what matters to you. And that was really great advice because I had to write a lot of columns, I had to give a lot of speeches, and I tried to stay within that brand. But it's not just about you. We know that from the research, right? It's not me culture versus we culture, it's both. So it's not just about positioning yourself, it's about promoting others and working with others to feel like they are also a part of the team. Next, I say, how I position myself, and it's not always about books, refereed articles. Sometimes I've gotten more response from radio shows, op-eds, other opinion pieces I've written with colleagues calling for action, and as I said earlier, being a nurse out loud. I want to call out Ching-Min Chen, Dr. Ching-Min Chen. She is a board member of the American Academy of Nursing, the first one from Asia to be on the board. And she is a policymaker in Taiwan and the first nurse to be there. She's also an artist, and she uses art to celebrate nursing and to educate about nursing and to nurse out loud. So there are different ways you can do it. The last one is to pursue possibilities. Take a risk. What expertise do you bring? How will you claim your space and unveil your hidden talents? How will you describe your personal brand? The stories we tell ourselves may not always be true. We need to question some of those assumptions. How I pursued possibility. I like art, and I've pursued a lot of different teaching pedagogy in my classes. From the arts, the liberal arts, the performing arts, poetry. Always took my students to the art museum, and we can really learn a lot in the healing arts from other areas. I'd also like to recognize Shannon McDonald. She's on Zoom, and Shannon was an undergraduate nursing student here, honor student. She wanted to work with me and explore art in nursing education. And I'm proud to say that her passion has led her to some really great successful things in life. And we did have a great paper accepted teaching the art as teacher. So next, I want to recognize that there's also many other kinds of art that's emerging after the pandemic. But I think we have an opportunity to help others pursue their possibilities what could be there for others. Dr. Joel Anderson approached me in 2013. He was a director of, one of his units was the innovation unit. And we began working together on innovation on that unit. And he said, I think I'd like to go back and get my doctoral degree. Before we discussed that, I remember the conversation, I said, before I will talk to you about a doctorate, I want to know, what is your purpose and what is your passion? And he said, I'm passionate about leadership, I'm passionate about quality, and how some people are effective and others not so much, and I have a love of history. He said that was my undergraduate degree at UVA. He paid attention, blended his passions, pivoted several times to finally pinpoint what brings him the most joy. He pursued possibilities and created his own door. And yes, he was the last of the 30+ doctoral students I have had the pleasure of hooding. Thanks for being here today, Dr. Anderson. How do you pursue possibility? What might be possible? In working with your students, what might be possible for them? It takes courage, it takes listening, it takes affirmation. I want to leave you with 10 ways that you can bolster mattering. I'm not going to go through all these things, but it's the soft things you do. Checking in with others, a text, asking a question, listening, showing up, writing a note, remembering a birthday, remembering the date of the loss of a loved one. Very important. Know your students and each other's names and how to pronounce them correctly. There's nothing more beautiful than hearing your name. Acknowledge how people matter to you, what they've done, how you've observed the things that they've done, so that you can promote a we culture and a healthy community as a place to work. I steal this from Dory Fontaine. She used to say, my goal is to have people come to work happy and to have them leave work happier. Well, it's not possible every day, we all know that, but wouldn't that be wonderful if that's the way it was? So at the end of the day, if we go back to the 6 Ps, playing to our strengths, our purpose, our passion, positioning, promoting others, paying attention, this is really about mattering. I would like to conclude by circling back to Zula May Baber Bice and how she was a role model for the 6 Ps and how she changed nursing education at UVA forever by merging 3 schools into one, increasing the pay, benefits, and stature for professional nursing at UVA. I'm also inspired and encouraged by people like Alex, Sabrina, Julie, and Joel, Anna, all of my former students. Please forgive me if I don't remember you or recognize your name today. And also for people who cross our paths unexpectedly, like Sean Bridges. Sean, thanks for being here. Sean and I sat next to each other on an airplane, and we started talking. We went beneath the surface very quickly. I found out he was associated with Children's Hospital here, and that's kind of like the story of my life. And then we're back to the quote that I started out with. When you follow your bliss, doors will open for you that you didn't know were there and that wouldn't be there for anyone else. And I give the credit to Norma Geddes, who I interviewed as a graduate student in 1993 at VCU. She has a BSN and an MSN from our School of Nursing. And she also has a PhD now, had a wonderful career as a scholar, teacher, practitioner, OB nurse, and she retired and discovered something wonderful. She attended a glassmaking class, and now she's a master glass artist with a huge international following. And I've learned so much from her, and we continue to be grateful that we found our bliss and that we're following what matters. This is our home in Afton, Virginia, and I want to say this is a metaphor, the hilltop is a metaphor for what we as nurses and health professionals must do in moments of uncertainty, division, and fear. We must use our voices. We must be nurses out loud, and we must position ourselves and our professions to compel the world and justice forward. Thank you. What a pleasure it is for me to be back home, to be with you. I hope you are inspired to act intentionally to bolster yours and one another's sense of mattering. Thank you for listening. I hope you will continue to support one another and yourselves. Thank you all. Dr. Mutter, by my watch, I'm 2 minutes over.
Thank you. And I know some people may have to head out toward, but we do have time for maybe 1 or 2 questions from the live audience. Unfortunately, won't be able to take any from our Zoom audience, but as you'll see, there is a microphone. If you want to just press the button and ask a question, anyone.
If there are questions from the Zoom audience, I can answer them by email or later on too. Or if any of you have questions, happy to talk to you at any time. krwhite@virginia.edu. Questions? Thank you all.
I don't have a question, but thank you. I really needed this. And I'm going to start crying too. But this was exactly what I needed this week. I'm not a nurse, but my youngest daughter is a nurse actually in my clinic. She went through the CNL program at U. And I need this imprinted on my brain.
Thank you for your comment. And it's wonderful to be a nurse. I love being a nurse. Yes, sir. Dr. Ridge.
Well, first, thanks for remembering my name. We don't know each other that
You're
well.
unforgettable.
Yes, well, thank you. So looking back many years ago, if you walked into that Mr. Fisher's room, was it Mr. Fisher that you?
Yes.
Well, okay. If you walked into his room today and he said, I'm not getting out of bed, what would you say to him today?
So I actually had that situation. One of my last patients before I left UVA, Mr. Knight, it's okay, I have permission to say his name. He had a very different experience. I had cared for him throughout, and he preferred for me to take care of him when he was admitted to the hospital. He was alone most of his life. He was incarcerated, but we had a connection. And we talked about his life-limiting condition. And he said he wanted me to be there when it happened. And of course, you never can predict when that's going to happen, right? However, I worked on Tuesdays, right? I'm driving into the parking lot at McLeod Garage. I get a page saying the ER's calling and your patient, Mr. Knight's there. I walked into his room and he said, I waited till Tuesday because I knew you'd be here. That's all I needed to feel like my purpose has been accomplished. It's about relationships.
Thank you so much. And I'll end with a comment from the Zoom audience from Beth Kotara. Ken, thank you so much. You matter. You've taught us so much over the years, and we are truly grateful. So thank you.
Thank you. Tears are the proof of life.